First of all, I'd really like to say thank you, Future Days, for having me and for giving this space for a human voice to also be heard. It's really gratifying to have this experience. And second point, I will be talking about the future of Portugal in English, not because I don't value the Portuguese language, but because it's a way for everyone to understand and for everyone to also be able to share their voice on it. So, welcome to Portugal, a land known for its really nice weather, for the nice views, and for the typical pastéis de nata. Apart from the mainland where we today stand, there are also the islands. We have them. There are islands where Cristiano Ronaldo and I come from, and the Azores Islands, known for its green fields, the cheese, and the Terra Nostra song. If you never heard it, I won't be able to sing it, but you can search it up online. It's really nice. I'd like to welcome you to a journey through the history of Portugal. We'll start off with the past, then we'll go to an in-depth analysis of its present, and then how we can better the future with youth as its center point. So let's start. Okay, this should work. Let's start off with the past. Okay, this is not working. I don't know what's going on. But okay, let's start off with the past. There are some really typical idioms and symbols that mark Portugal's history. For example, 1143, quem não sabe esta data não é português. This was the first idiom my year 5 history teacher told me. It means 1143, who doesn't know this date, is in Portuguese, and it refers to the Treaty of Zamora. This marks the beginning of Portugal's independence. This marks the beginning of Portugal as a country and as Portugal having its own identity. This is the start of my country. Then we have Caiu o Carmo e a Trindade. Carmo and Trindade were two of the main churches in Lisbon, and they fell when we had the 1755 earthquake. For more tragic that this event was, it also marked how the Portuguese are really resilient and how they have a will to fight and a will to reconstruct their city. A figure that researched from this event was Marquês de Pombal, who led the reconstruction of the city as we know it today. And how can we talk about Portugal without talking about its emblematic carnation? Can anyone just pass the slides for me? It's not working. It's really not working. I'm so sorry. Thank you. This is the emblematic Portuguese carnation. Cravo, as we call it, is the symbol of freedom, and it's the symbol of democracy. This year marks the 50th anniversary of democracy, and this flower was the one that symbolized it. Let's see if it works. Yes, it works. It marked its democracy, and it marked freedom, and it also marked how Portugal gained its rights. This flower is such an emblematic symbol of our country and of our democracy. And we see a democracy that we are seeing vanishing day by day in many countries. And this just marks how it's so important and how we cannot forget it. Now, let's go to the present. There are 5 main areas I would really like to explore with you all and bring knowledge to you. First one is mental health. I think everyone has seen on TikTok or in Reels videos about this. At least one video every day shows up on my feed about this theme, especially by young people. But let's see how Portugal really is in terms of mental health. Right now, Portugal is the second worst country in terms of mental health in Europe, only surpassed by Northern Ireland. 1 in every 5 Portuguese individuals suffers from at least one mental health disorder. And the mental health disorder they suffer from most is anxiety, especially young people from the age of 18 to 34. And there are many causes we can point out for this to happen, especially the educational system. This is also verified here. Anxiety is definitely the one that has the highest values, and it has the highest values in young people. There is also a really interesting study done in Portugal during quarantine. How do young people actually feel about quarantine. And one of the most interesting things was that online classes, that for me were the most negative aspects of quarantine because I had to stay home, I couldn't be with my friends, I couldn't be with my teachers, was actually pointed out as something positive. However, there are negative aspects which I agree with, such as the psychological symptoms that we verified, depression, for instance, lack of concentration, tedious days, and not being able to be with others, only relying on online to do so. Then there is also emigration. People leaving, people coming in, but how do these tendencies actually influence the population? I chose this topic because this year, in the beginning of the year, the news were only talking about how young people were the group that was most leaving the country because Portugal isn't giving the conditions for young people to stay. They aren't giving the space for young people to flourish. And one of the findings as well was that immigrants are way more qualified than they were before, which shows that Portugal has a good educational system, not in the sense that I totally agree with how the educational system is built, but in the sense that it gives the essential basis for people to be formed, to have qualified professionals, but then Portugal doesn't give them the conditions to stay. It doesn't give them the minimum wage for them to survive, so they have to leave. And what we are seeing is that more the people leaving are more qualified than ever. And then, again, the people that are leaving the most are young people. This is horrible. Young people are the ones that are leaving the most. They make up more or less 70% of all the people that left in 2021. Done. As you can see here, from 15 to 39 years old are the people that are leaving the most. And this is really shocking. How are we creating, the educational conditions for our young people to be more formed, and then they are the ones that need to leave because they do not have the conditions to stay? Then we also have another topic that I would like to explore, that is women. Not because it is directly influencing the youth, but because I think it hits home to many women that are here right now. Okay, it's here, thank you. Women, apart from they are conditioned by their biological system, of course, but sometimes these conditions aren't really that visible. Sometimes they are more psychological. And maybe that's why many women related to the Barbie film, especially the scenes. For me, especially the music. Billie Eilish songs are obviously very touching. A scene in the beginning where we have a Barbie that's a lawyer that values her emotional side, and then the America Ferrera monologue that I would really like it, for it to show up, it's sewed up, that says, "I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots that people will like us. And if all of that is also true for a doll just representing women, then I don't even know." In terms of statistics in Portugal, there's a really interesting study done by Fundação Francisco Manuel dos Santos called Mulheres em Portugal Hoje that explores these conditions. Right now, women are way more qualified than their spouses, as we can see here, for instance. They are still the ones that do most of the household chores in Portugal. And as we can see here, they do 3.2 times more the chores than men. Although there are couples where it's symmetrically divided, it's not in every household. And even then, there is a preponderance for women to do more of the work than them. Again, they are the ones that are more qualified, but both work. That's not a condition that is being explored. They also feel like they aren't put in leadership positions because men are the ones that are in leadership positions, and they tend to value men over women when putting them in these positions, and not only their curriculums. And this one was, for me, the most shocking evidence that 3% of women, from the ones that were in this study, are fired after having their first child because it's still expected for women to be the ones that stay at home and take care of the family and to be the ones that change their work schedule, stay at home, or are even fired after having their first child. Then we also have education. Education for me is a bit of a controversy to speak about because I was involved in a petition to change the education system last year. And we went to Parliament, we spoke about it, and nothing was done. But that's because I feel like the curriculum is too extensive. People don't have time to study it all, teachers don't have time to teach it all, and then students don't really learn to be citizens. They just learn what they really need to learn because we have exams. For instance, I'm going to have to do 4 exams to be able to go to college. And some of the exams I'm doing aren't really related to what I'm going to do. And in the end, doing the sums, they end up valuing more than 50% of my final grade. And the whole 3 years of work will almost go to nothing because what really matters are the exams and the grades you get and not who you are as a person. But let's see how young people actually feel about this. So, in the last PISA results in 2022, we can see a really high downfall in results in the 3 main areas: mathematics, reading, and science. And there are many factors to blame. They blame the students themselves, didn't study, didn't care. They blame the teachers because the teachers didn't have time, or there even aren't enough teachers for all the students we have in Portugal. And, of course, the pandemic and the online classes and how many students didn't have the conditions to have classes online because it's really hard to have a computer, to have Wi-Fi working. And if there are other people at home, they also need that Wi-Fi. They also need those computers to do their jobs. So it was really hard to balance it all. And the results obviously went down. However, students feel happier at schools compared to 2018. They feel less of outsiders, and they feel a better sense of belonging. Not really that they make more friends, I think the number maintained, but they feel they belong more. And I think that's really important, that we are creating safer ecosystems in our schools. And now the area that actually brought me to future days, young people. How is youth participating more? How is youth involved in Portugal? What are young people actually doing? These are some photos of me, of my friends, and some of the projects we've been in. We were in a meeting, a young people meeting with the president. I gave a TED talk. That's me with my friends, and some projects we did in Nova University. And these are the people that participate and that take part in. These are the young people of Portugal. And whenever I talk about young people, I always remember my favorite Taylor Swift song, Cardigan. There's a part of the lyrics that says, when you are young, they assume you know nothing. And I think every young person who tries to participate has felt this way. We always have a lot to say, but the older generation, and I'm not blaming any of you, we are all young of spirit, assumes that young people don't know anything and that they are still young, they are still learning, and they don't have anything to add, but it's not true. And I am 1,000% sure Taylor Swift didn't write these lyrics with this intention, but every time I listen to this song, it's all that comes to mind. There are a lot of studies done in Portugal about youth participation, especially in politics. And there's this one I'm going to show that's from Gulbenkian Studies and Fundação Francisco Manuel dos Santos that says that there's this general idea that participation is declining in Portugal, but that isn't true, and there is no evidence that sustents that. What they say is that participation isn't the same as it was before. We had participation that was more conventional, political parties, for instance. And now we have a participation that's mostly online. People go to manifestations, people try non-conventional ways of participation. So it doesn't mean that people aren't participating. It's just different. And then again, we have a declining faith in democracy. That's why many young people are relying on extreme right-wing political parties for their vote because they feel like those are the ones that actually see them and actually see their ideas, because the conventional political parties aren't doing their part. And so, as I said, participation online is the one that has the most young people being there because it's the one that they rely in. It's the one, if we spend our whole lives on our phones, what other types of participation will we use if not on our phones, if not social media, blogs, debates online, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram? All these social media platforms are spaces of debate for young people, and they need to be, seen like that. They cannot be undermined. Again, they also said that political parties aren't doing their job in being more relatable to young people. If they continue using the same instruments they used before to gain the attention of the older audience, they aren't going to captivate the young people. And then these people, they realize of the importance of democracy and the importance of voting, but they won't actually do it because they cannot relate. The system is too old school for them. They aren't able to relate to something that they don't see themselves in. Again, it's not that there isn't a belief that voting and democracy isn't important, it's just that they cannot relate to it. What was really interesting about this study as well was that it contained opinions from real-life young people. These are the names of young people that are in projects and that are involved in politics, that participated in the study and shared how they feel. For instance, Vicente says that we are the most informed generation of all time. But at the same time, we are the first generation that is going to have worse conditions than their parents. He mentions his friends that's 26, 27, that is already going through his third economical crisis. And how can we let that happen? For example, Luis also mentions that his friends are gaining an interest in politics that is surprising him. In the elections at the time, there were the American elections, he says his friends were debating about it, and that's important. It's important for us to create safe spaces for teens to be able to express their opinions about the elections that are going on, for instance. They also point out the three main reasons why young people don't participate. The first one is schools and a failing school system. The school system isn't creating a space for young people to be able to participate and to be able to share their opinion. The young people themselves, they see their hopes in a better system declining, and because of that, they don't want to participate, and they don't have any empathy for those that are in politics. And then there are some structural obstacles that are still, let's say, in our society, geographical obstacles, economical obstacles that don't let young people go where they want to go and say what they want to say. Hinata says that there are a lot of projects, because it's true, there are a lot of projects, but if you are not inside the projects, you won't be able to participate in them because they aren't shared. You don't go online and see a lot of projects. Maybe now we see more, especially from the Council of Europe. I think they do a really good job on that. But in Portugal, it's really hard to know what is actually going on. Sometimes I hear about projects on the radio, and I am sure most of my colleagues don't go to the news and read them or listen to the radio to find out where they can participate. So maybe sharing more of these projects in ways young people can access is a solution for this problem. Carlos and Patricia talk about the geographical conditions. I, for instance, live in an island, and when I want to go to a project in the mainland, usually I have to finance my own traveling, a place to stay, someone to pick me up because I am a minor. And I know many of my friends don't have that possibility. They cannot do it. Not many people have the conditions to pay 200, 300 euros for a flight to come to a project and back. It's not possible. And yes, there are online opportunities, but there aren't that many that young people can actually access. And when you access online, Even if they say it doesn't happen, it does happen that you aren't as valued as someone that is physically present. Patricia talks about her own example in Algarve, how not even youth political parties show up, and that's really hard for young people to participate and say what they think when not even the political parties do the work, not even trying to gain voters to do so. And Sandra says the same point I tried to do with Taylor Swift. It's not that young people don't want to participate, it's the adults that don't want to listen. And if the adults don't want to listen, then no matter how much I speak or that we speak, nothing will ever be done. And that's why we should also rely on the vote. And that's what Marilia says. We need a democracy. For more manifestations that we do, for more projects we take part in, if there isn't a stable democracy, if we don't vote, then nothing will effectively change, because I can talk a lot, and it can get exhausting to listen to me. But if I don't vote, then the policymakers won't change anything, because they have their own programs. They aren't focused on only listening to us. They also have other priorities. So we need to vote to make that happen. There is a very interesting study from Cambridge University that explores the generation gap and the passing of the years, and how the faith in democracy starts declining. And that is why we have extreme right-wing political parties emerging in Europe. Because in the study, the first page of the study explores how young people are voting on extreme right-wing political parties because, first of all, these are the ones that care about the environment, and second of all, these are the ones that are open to listen young people, and those that the programs are actually open for initiatives with young people. This is from the Council of Europe. This is really just to reinforce my point of how participation is changing. We start with the voting definition of participation, and then we have civic engagement, processed actions, and this is how participation is changing. Participation isn't a fixed definition. Participation is evolving, and we need to take that into account when saying that participation is only voting. It's not. Voting is essential, yes, but voting is not the only way we have to participate. So I think where we stand, I think we already know where we stand in Portugal, at least from what I showed you. But what can we actually do to change this? What can we actually do to evolve to the next step and to evolve to the future? And I think there is a really simple answer for this. And the answer is youth. We have to rely on what youth gives us and what youth has to say to be able to change our country, to be able to change and mold our future. And so education leads to participation. And this is a really nice image, I think. But without explaining it, it doesn't really make sense. So education is what forms citizens. And in Portugal, we have a very extensive curriculum. Teachers don't have time to teach it all. Students don't have time to learn it all. And students get exhausted. I am exhausted. I think I talk for every colleague of mine when I say we are exhausted. And students are day by day more anxious. As we saw, the demographics where anxiety is highest are young people, and this isn't normal. They are anxious because all of their grades depend on 1, 2, 3, 4 single exams. They're stressed because if we miss 1 or 2 days of classes, as I am doing today, we will get very behind on schedule. And then teachers, they do their part. I'm not criticizing teachers. I think they have an enormous weight on their shoulders to give the whole curriculum to students. And they cannot go back. They cannot facilitate even more because they don't have the time to do so. So I participate in projects, and I know many of my friends would like to do the same, but they cannot because we all have this consciousness that if we skip 1 or 2 days of class to do something we effectively like, we won't be able to keep up with the classes. It's not a possibility the way the Portuguese system is built. So my first recommendation would be to reduce the curriculum. I'm not saying not to continue to teach students because the Portuguese curriculum is done in a way that students know a lot. I know a lot. I know things that, for instance, my mom only learned in college and I'm in year 11. But sometimes we don't need all of that. We also need to create spaces where students can be themselves and where students can evolve as people, because students are people, young people are people effectively, and they also need the space to grow and to be themselves. And if schools start giving these spaces for projects, students can be involved in sports, they can be involved in decision-making, they can go and say what they want their school to have, what conditions they want their school to better. By creating those spaces, we are already letting young people participate a little bit more, but we are already letting them. And we also have to think that participation isn't only talking. Every time I take part in an action, every time I go and play a game, that is participation, because either way, I will tell how I feel. And telling how I feel is communicating, and communicating is participating. So if we create these small ecosystems where students feel free to participate in schools, we will be able to expand them to regional, national, international levels. For instance, I take part in the National Youth Council and I represent my region on it. And I know many other young people would love to have that opportunity as well. But sometimes it isn't possible. So maybe if we decided to create regional councils, in this city council, in that city council, and I know Lisbon is already starting to do that. Where I live, I know that also happens. But maybe try to expand it to the whole country. If we have little spaces where I want to share my opinion, I go there and I debate with other students, I debate with other young people, they share their points of view, we are participating. And if we make sure, because the thing is, it's not only speaking, it's also making sure every voice is heard. Because I remember very clearly the first conference I went to, there was this little guy speaking, and he said, oh, well, my country asks for my opinion, and then shoves it right inside a box and never opens it again. If we continue doing that, of course, young people won't want to participate, because they don't see things happening. And one thing about my generation is that we like to see immediate results. Not that everything needs to be immediate, but, going into meeting and participating and saying what I think and actually seeing that happening, actually seeing, the sentence I said in the document, or a policy maker telling me, well, we'll try to do that. We're going to try to make it happen. That's essential, because that's the moment young people will know, oh, well, my voice has power. I can actually change something. So by creating these spaces, we are already making a huge step. And we don't always need to start by that huge step. Everything we do every day is participating, even if we don't acknowledge it. For instance, I mentioned this on my TED Talk. If you've been to McDonald's, in the back of your bill, you'll see a survey. If you answer that survey and you actually get a sundae or a hamburger for doing so, you are participating. That's the basis of participating, because you are changing someone's life. Even if it's the person that was working on the restaurant that day, it's someone, and you are already doing something. If you go online and create a blog, if you go online and comment on a TikTok video, for more dumb that your comment is, you are already participating. And we need to acknowledge that that is also participation. And we need to make sure everyone knows that is participation, because that is the basis of our future. Right now, the future is technological. And if we don't start creating the tools, if we don't start fomenting the tools that we need for our future, then is there going to be a future? really. A future where youth is central, and a future that is not only based on the adults that are already there and on the people that are actually living the legislation and the people that are actually studying, the people that are actually affected by it. Well, there are very interesting infographics on the Council of Europe on this. We have this is the first image of the Insights Meaningful Youth Political Participation in Europe, and it explores what I was saying, the future of political participation, all the types of participation young people can have that will be meaningful and that will influence, and we need to acknowledge it. And then the Youth Council, as I was talking about, creating new in youth councils everywhere. Everywhere we can, let's create one. Even if there aren't many young people, let's create one with the ones that are interested. Because it's always the same people in the projects, because it's the people that realize that it's not only the grades that matter, it's who I am as a person and who I'm transforming myself into a citizen that matters. And again, all the causes of manifestation, you have Me Too, you have Black Lives Matter, all these initiatives help mold people, and sometimes they are undervalued. Sometimes we don't acknowledge them as important, but this is the way youth is showing what they think right now. And there are some questions also in this document about what is meaningful youth participation in your country. I don't know how many of you are in Portugal. If you could put your hand in the air, how many of you are Portuguese or live in Portugal? Okay. So yes, I've just criticized your country. But all of you that aren't, I think you're sure that is also youth in your country that tries to participate and tries to say what they think. And maybe these questions are good for you to think about what is going on in your country, because maybe most of you are adults right now, youth in spirit again, but you've been young people before. You've also tried to share your opinions. You've also tried to make an impact on your society. You all grew with dreams and aspirations, and you grew with the dream of your country being able to fulfill them. So I really welcome you all to reflect on how participation is going on in your country. And are you actually valuing young people? Or are you only writing that they are important, and then you don't really say how they are important? Because again, these changes aren't only for me. I'm not saying this because this is the only thing I want. I'm saying this because I've talked with other young people. I've talked to my colleagues. I've talked to my friends. I was messaging them right before I went on stage, asking how they want their Portugal to be, because I can assure you, most of the people I know want to leave Portugal because they don't see themselves growing here. They don't see a country that is creating conditions for them to evolve, to bloom, to be better people. They aren't. And I think that bringing youth inside is the only way we can guarantee that these statistics changed, that the results go up, because if students can actually say what they think about the curriculum they are in and how exams work or how getting into university works, maybe the results will change, and maybe the way they feel in schools will even better. Maybe if we ask more women, more young women, how they feel, maybe we can change these tendencies. Maybe if we create better conditions in our country, immigration from young people will decline. Maybe mental health will better. Who knows? Because this is, for me, the only way that I can achieve the Portugal I want. And not only the Portugal I want and that we want, but the Portugal we deserve. Because we were born here, we work here, we have our lives here, we also deserve it to be better. These are the faces of many of my friends, colleagues, people I met in projects, friends that accompany me all the way, people that heard this presentation before I did it here. And apart from all of them being Portuguese, we also share something else in common. We are all young people with dreams and aspirations. We are all young people who have, let's say, ambition to be better and to impact the world. And not just to be someone else, but to be someone that matters. Not that no one matters, everyone matters, but in the sense that they want to shape the world and they want to be better people. But only changing this country, only molding this country to their views and to who they are, only molding this country to what they actually need and giving them the spaces to participate and making the curriculum able to accept these young people, to accept them as people who want to take part in the projects, will we be able to evolve. If you allow me to do this last part in Portuguese, I think it's okay. Eu gostava mesmo de pedir que pensassem nestas pessoas, nestes jovens, porque estes são o futuro de Portugal. Não sou só eu, somos nós todos. Somos nós todos que temos sonhos. Tenho aqui jogadores de futebol, jogadores de ténis, ginastas, acrobatas. Tenho aqui pessoas que querem escrever livros, que jogam desportos, que ganham concursos, que estão na escola e que, além de quererem aprender, também querem se desenvolver. Também querem se tornar bons cidadãos e querem garantir que o seu país muda. Temos de fazer isto, nem que seja por eles. Não estou a pedir para fazer por mim, mas estou a pedir por fazer por todas estas pessoas que eu adoro mesmo. E por eles, acima de tudo. Porque esta é a juventude de Portugal. E esta é a juventude que vai mudar. Porque nós não somos apenas os ativistas de hoje, somos também os ativistas do amanhã. E amanhã quem vai estar a fazer as decisões não são vocês, adultos, que já aí estão, somos nós. Obrigada. Thank you.